In the wake of the Supreme Court gutting the right to an abortion, House Democrats have passed several bills, one which codified the right for LGBTQIA plus people to get married, and earlier this morning passed a bill to codify contraception. Great. Now, the bill passed despite 195 Republicans who decided to vote against it. The bill, which passed mainly on party line votes, was 228 to 195. Now, think about that. The guarantee to access contraception was opposed by the majority of the Republican Party. What? That's 96% of the Republican Party in the House specifically saying, yeah, we don't want you to get contraception. Birth control. Don't care. In fact, birth control does way more than actually prevent pregnancy. It helps regulate women's hormonal cycles, as well as treat medical issues. For example, can help with cramps, PMS, anemia, endometriosis symptoms, which it helps relieve, prevents ovarian cysts. It also helps with polycystic ovarian syndrome and can even lower risk of certain types of cancers. Now, 195 Republicans said, yeah, okay, don't care. Oh, right. Because, you know, their thoughts are women can have sex outside of reproduction, and it turns out that we don't actually like that. Now, remember, the whole right-wing premise here is to punish women who engage in sexual activity for fun and pleasure. I know. Oh, my God. What a horrible thing. Oh, no. Women having sex outside of strictly reproduction? Can't have it. Can't have it. Really? What's funny is that, you know, look, as I said, they want to punish women, but it's never the man that gets punished. The man never has to deal with any of the consequences. It's always placed squarely on the female for having to bear a child and then raise that child. They have to deal with their body essentially being taken over by a parasitical entity that leaches their nutrients, their blood. It takes over their body. They even leach the calcium from your bones to grow. And then they have to go through the birthing process, from which, you know, from what I hear is not exactly a pleasant experience. I will never have to experience that. So it's great that I don't make laws based on that, because I shouldn't make laws based on that. Worse is if you have to get a C-section, right? They literally go in to make a bunch of incisions to get to it, to get to the fetus, and they end up rearranging your insides, literally, to get at that baby. I don't think women should be forced to go through that process, especially by the government. The government should not be forcing women to go through that. All right. Now, that said, if you don't want people to have abortions, then you should be in favor of birth control. But as we see, 195 of them said, no. We want to not only ban abortion, but we also want to force you to have those babies. I'm going to restrict access to birth control. Now, I know some of them will say, oh, this bill is just unnecessary. Is it, though? Is it? They said the same thing about Roe. Oh, no, it's established precedent. We'll never, we're not going to go after that. But trust me, trust us. Trust us. When you have a Supreme Court justice, in this case, Clarence Thomas, saying, hey, maybe we ought to look at getting rid of Griswold v. Connecticut, among other decisions that are civil rights decisions, then yeah, I would say that this bill would be necessary. Unfortunately, though, both of the bills that were just passed, they could end up falling to the filibuster, which is disastrous. And look, here's why, okay? Right-wingers have been working on overturning Roe for decades. They've been working long and hard to strip away abortion rights. And guess what? They're not going to stop there. You had these Supreme Court justices lying under oath to get on the bench. You're going to trust anything they say? You're going to trust them? You're going to trust Thomas? You're going to trust people like Mitch McConnell? Come on. No, I don't trust any of them. They're not going to stop there. They're going to come after all your civil rights, and they already are talking about doing so. And by they, I mean Republicans like Matt Gaetz, who voted against this, Paul Gosar, Jack Bergman, and Joe Wilson. And unlike the same-sex marriage bill, which actually got about over 40, I believe 47 Republicans that voted for in favor of it, which was actually quite surprising. Only 8 Republicans voted in favor of this. And let me give you their names. Representative Liz Cheney, again, surprising vote, but welcome. Brian Fitzpatrick of Pennsylvania, Anthony Gonzalez of Ohio, John Katko of New York, Adam Kinzinger, again, not a surprise, of Illinois, Nancy Mace of South Carolina, also, again, supporting the, and by the way, a lot of these Republicans also supported the same-sex marriage bill, which is interesting. Maria Salazar of Florida, and Fred Upton of Michigan. So now, look, I want to tell you who they are because credit where credit is due. Yeah, they're the minority of the Republican Party, but they actually did vote the right way, in a way that is, of course, in line with actual freedom and privacy, which, again, is super surprising, but welcome. So now getting back to Mace, right? So Nancy Mace actually went a little bit of a step further. She told USA Today that improved health care for women in a post-Roe America should include access to birth control. And she actually did walk into the chamber with a statement on her clothes, basically saying we should protect contraception. And I think that's a good thing, right? Now, she told USA Today, quote, "There's a reason why we're having so many of these abortions. If women had access to birth control, maybe we wouldn't have a reason to have so many of these children murdered in the womb." Now, again, I don't like that framing. I'll get to that. But first, the rest of her statement. She said, if you're going to ban abortion, you've got to make sure women have access to health care, medical care, prenatal care, and birth control. All right. So, again, her framing is disastrous because it doesn't fit the facts. She is a Republican, after all. But she's mostly right on the rest of that. But let me just give you the facts here. The majority of abortions, the vast majority, actually take place before fetal viability. Before that's an actual life, an independent human being. Before there's even a heartbeat, before there's even a heart. And so that's, again, the vast majority of abortions that are performed. Now, the ones, of course, that do take place later, again, the vast majority usually have to do with the mother, whether that pregnancy is a danger to the mother or the fetus is not viable. And so, you know, those are the facts on that, okay? Now, her statement, the rest of it, again, makes sort of sense from her perspective. Now, again, I think that regardless of the state of Roe, you know, or the protection of abortion rights, I think those should be enshrined in the law. I think, you know, abortion anytime for any reason, that's what I'm in support of, because it's not my body. It's their body. And they should have control over it. That said, right? Even if you have full abortion rights, like the ones that I'm, you know, in favor of, well, you should still have health care. You should still have contraception. Because, again, if you have contraception that's free and easily available, well, then you're not going to have as many abortions. That's a good thing, right? Again, if you're actually pro-life and you believe that, then, yes, you would be in favor of more contraception. And it looks like Nancy Mace, to give her credit, even if I disagree with her framing, she seems to be coming from it from an actual pro-life position. So I'm being totally fair. I disagree with her, and the science disagrees with her, but she actually makes a really good point that we should have health care, we should have prenatal care, we should have all of that stuff, regardless of, again, the condition of Roe. And so that's why I'm in favor of Medicare for all. That's why I'm in favor of these social programs. But again, ultimately saying, hey, if we're going to do this, it might as well, like, of course, make sense to prevent pregnancies, which we prevent abortions, and give pregnant people support if they're going to end up having that baby. That makes a ton of sense. Ton of sense. But this gets back to the point where the majority of the Republican Party continues to prove that they are not pro-life, they are pro-birth, pro-forced birth. Again, once it's born, the majority of them don't give a damn. No, you don't get any health care. You don't get any paid leave. You don't get food stamps. No, you get no support. You know what you get? You get some fucking bootstraps. Here you go. Good luck. Remember, they love it when it's preborn. But as Carlin said, if you're preschool, you're fucked. No truer words have been spoken about the Republican Party. But as I've explained before, too, I think that this is again, the far right here, which is in control of the Republican Party. You have the extremists, the lunatics that are running the asylum, okay? And a lot of them are incredibly racist. And so what do you hear, for example, on Tucker Carlson, right? White replacement, white replacement. They're replacing white people, okay? The demographics are changing. And yes, is it true that demographics are changing, that the United States is getting more diverse? Yeah. Now I look at that and I see a good thing. Racists look at that and see, oh no. And so, I mean, look, poor people do not have the means to get abortions. Well, and while, you know, access to abortion and abortion restrictions disproportionately affect people of color, it also does mean that poor white people living in rural communities, you know, the Republican base, well, guess what? It's going to happen to them. They're going to have more babies. They're going to have more white babies. They're going to have more possible Republican voters. That's what they're hoping for. They're trying to ensure that the next generation, because the newer generations, like Gen Z, millennials, were more progressive. Okay? They're trying to not just increase the domestic supply of infants, which is incredibly cryptic and really kind of a fucked up phrase that came from Amy Coney Barrett. But they're trying to increase that, not just the domestic supply of infants, but white infants. Infant mortality, I have to remind you, among black infants is much higher, especially when it comes to red states. Now, that means, of course, less of them survive, more, you know, not just infant mortality, but there's mortality among pregnant people as well, who happen to be black. And so less of them survive, but more white babies, because of this disparity, more white babies survive. And they end up becoming, at least in their hopes, becoming Republican voters. I definitely think that's the plan. And if you don't think that way, I mean, you're probably just not paying attention, because they're really, really honest about it. If you pay attention to what they're actually saying, it's all related. I mean, banning abortion, banning birth control, taking over school boards to teach their specific version of history, which is, again, white nationalism, banning critical race theory, or just, you know, applying the label of critical race theory to anything that happens to just teach black history, or, you know, history of how Asian people were treated in this country, of how Latinos were treated in this country, anyone who was not white and Christian, right? They also banned gender studies, try to defund schools, defund colleges, and try to get professors fired for teaching actual history, that kind of stuff. And I think all of that is just part of an effort to reverse not only decades of demographic changes that have threatened Republican majorities, but also to propagandize young people into voting for conservatives and conservative policies. And I say that because, again, I think we on the left have vastly underestimated Republican planning. You look back in the attacks on Roe, and how after 50 years, they have culminated in them successfully taking over the Supreme Court with activist judges to overturn, the progress on women's reproductive rights. And now they're, again, telegraphing an attack on all these others: same-sex marriage, contraception rights, bringing back sodomy laws to go after gay people. All that's being telegraphed right now. And these are all priorities that have been targeted by the right wing. And so, yes, they are very, very long-term planners. And that, of course, makes them incredibly dangerous. That's why we need to fight like hell to stop them.